name's DaniSurname, and to follow on from the video that I just filmed about how I found out that I was bisexual, I thought I would do one on my best and worst comings out. So let's kick it off. I don't think I've had any terrible, awful experiences with coming out. I've done pretty well. The best ones that I've had have been with my parents. With my stepdad, I came out maybe 2 days after I figured out that I was bisexual. We were doing the dishes, and he asked me how did it go with Morgan, because he knew that we were going to go chat about sexuality stuff together. And I said, great. Oh, I think I'm bisexual. And he was like, you know, that's fine. Sexuality is a thing that we deal with. You know, smooth, kind of just fell off the tongue. It was a great experience. But then the day after, he woke me up in the morning and said he was going to work, and had I told my mum? And I said no. Not for any reason, just because I'd only figured out and I hadn't got round to telling everybody yet. And he said, okay, well you need to tell her by the end of the day because I don't like keeping secrets from her. And I was like, okay. And I didn't mind that at all. There was no reason why I hadn't told my mum yet. It happened. Like, I just came out with my stepdad and hadn't had that experience with mum yet. And I felt fine about it. My mum had always been, you know, gay's okay. Her best friend growing up was gay, and she was always very proud of him. So I knew it was going to be fine. I knew if I ever was gay that my mum would be okay about it. But, So I panicked the whole day about telling her that I was bisexual, just because there was a time limit on it. Just because I wasn't the one who was in control of that situation. So when she came home from work, I basically, you know, followed her into her bedroom and said, can I talk to you? And that just, like, the whole mood dropped down. My advice for coming out to people is to not make it seem like a big deal. Because when you make it a big deal, it becomes a big deal. So then she said, are you gay? And I said, no, but I'm bisexual. How did you know I was going to say something? And she said, because you've been chatting about how Morgan was gay. Like, I just figured you saying you had something to tell me was around that kind of topic. And I start crying. And she says, I don't understand why you're crying. You know that it's fine. And I was like, I don't know, I just been stressing about it all day. Ah! And she said it was absolutely okay. The only thing that she did say that was a little bit, was, are you just coming out because Morgan's gay? And I was like, no, it's not a trend. You know, I'm not bisexual because Morgan's gay. That has no relevance. I just figured it out, you know, a couple of days ago. And then she came and hugged me, and it was all good, and it was all fine. The only reason why it was an uncomfortable coming out was just because I'd stressed about it so much. One of the more awkward comings out that I've had was with my biological father. My parents are divorced, and I live with my mom and my stepdad, and I regard them as my parents, but I do still see my dad. Less often now than when I was little, but I do. So about 6 months after I came out to my mom, I went to see him, and he was cooking. I was sitting down, you know, I had a glass of wine. I think I was quite young, so it was one of my first glasses of wine. Not that that's relevant. And I remember just, you know, running my hands up and down the stem of the wine glass. And I said, Dad, will you always love me? And he turned around and went, are you gay? And I said, no, I'm bisexual. And he just went, oh, okay. And I don't think he asked anything else. He just went straight to go get my stepmom. And he stood at the door and he went, because I don't want to use her name. Will you come in here, please? And she said no, that she was watching TV. And he was like, please, it's really important. So then she came in and she sat down, and she definitely had more wine than I had because she was very tipsy. And I said, I'm bisexual, and I just told Dad. And she was like, that's so good. And I remember her grabbing my hand and being like, we'll always love you. Had a little bit of a suspicion when I saw your hair. Oh, I love you, and I'm glad that you're happy and that you're all good. It was a really odd moment because we've never connected like that, and she was definitely drunk. But I was just happy that she was happy and that it was all good. My dad was definitely more awkward and just didn't really talk that night. But we have since, you know, chatted about women, and he tried to give me relationship advice with going in for the first kiss. We don't really talk about it now, but I don't really talk about it with my parents either. And then I came out to friends, and they were pretty much just by text. And then the most awkward coming out that I've ever had was when Mum had over 2 people that I'd never met before and that she hadn't seen in years. and she went to go get a drink. So I just made small talk with these guests, and they said, "What are you doing later?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going out with my girlfriend." And they just went, "Girlfriend?" And I was like, "Yes." And they sat there in silence, and it was like a literal tumbleweed rolled through. We just sat in like 2 or 3 minutes of complete silence while they just looked shocked and slightly disgusted. And then as soon as my mom came back in the room, I was like, "Right, nice to meet you, bye," and left. I was like, I'm not sticking around to have a conversation with people who aren't down with all this. Then the smoothest coming out I think I've ever had was ironically at school. You know, after years of being bullied, it was pretty smooth to actually be like, "No, not gay, still not gay, bisexual." So I came out wearing a t-shirt, which I have here, and is one of my favourite t-shirts, and I bought it specifically to come out at school, and it says, "My sexuality, rated E for everyone." And I basically just wore that in sixth form, but by the time we got to sixth form, no one really cared. You know, people had stopped saying stuff to me, nobody really talked about sexuality, not a lot of people had come out really at all still, but I wore that and people were like, "What's with the shirt?" And I said, "I'm bisexual." And they were like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, I expected so much more of a reaction. I feel like this is underwhelming and I deserve a little bit of scandal. Now that I'm ready for scandal, I deserve it. So then my best and worst comings out, none of them were particularly bad. You know, I've had a pretty smooth ride as comings out go. Oh, I think I figured out that I was bi at a pretty good age, and also at an age where it was okay to kind of come out and be like, "Yeah, I'm old enough to know myself. I do. Ta-da. Bye." And also old enough to be like, "Okay, I'm not sticking around if you're not okay with this." Coming out can be difficult. Was pretty easy. I got pretty lucky. Give me an ego boost, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Hey, so London Pride was amazing, and I'm compiling together some of the footage to make a video that should be ready in the next few days. It was really cool. I mean, there weren't so many freebies, so we didn't get to play the condom game, which was a bit of a letdown, but it was still incredible.